Alright, so let's just start this in a very honest way. Before we get into anything practical, I want to slow this down for a second and really set the context properly here because I feel like this part is often skipped or rushed in most financial videos. A lot of financial advice online kind of skips the reality part, like it assumes people already have structure, discipline, or even a stable starting point. But in reality, that's just not how most people in their 20s are living. Your 20s are not supposed to be perfect at all, and honestly, they are usually kind of messy, unpredictable, and sometimes even a bit chaotic in ways you don't fully notice while you're in it. You're not supposed to have everything figured out yet. Not your career, not your habits, not your money, and definitely not your long-term plan. And honestly, most people don't, even if it looks like they do from the outside when you scroll through social media or see what other people are posting. A lot of people are basically just improvising life in real time. Like they are adjusting month by month, decision by decision, sometimes just reacting instead of really planning ahead. And money is usually the area where that becomes visible the fastest. Because unlike other things in life, your finances don't really hide anything long term. Because money doesn't lie. It reflects habits, not intentions, which is something people don't really like hearing, but it's usually true. And that's actually what makes it useful at the same time, because it shows you reality without filters. Not because it's easy to look at, but because it's honest, and honesty is what allows improvement in the first place. So this video is not about perfection, and it's not about extreme discipline or some unrealistic grind mindset either. It's really just about noticing patterns early, small patterns that seem unimportant at first but actually shape your entire financial direction over time. Because once you see the pattern, you can't really unsee it anymore, and that's usually the moment things start to change slowly in the background. Before we actually continue, I just want to add something quickly here because this is something I wish more people understood earlier. Most people in their 20s don't actually need more information. They already know a lot more than they think they do. What they actually need is direction, even a very small one, something simple enough to follow without overthinking it. Because even a small direction is enough to change everything over time, not immediately, but gradually in a way that compounds. Because once you start moving correctly, even slowly, time does most of the work for you, and that's something people underestimate a lot. Let's go into it step by step. Tip number 1, pay yourself first. This sounds simple when you first hear it, almost too simple, like it shouldn't make a big difference, but in reality, it changes everything long term. Most people save only if something is left at the end of the month, like saving is treated as an if possible action instead of a priority. But in reality, there is almost never something left at the end, not because people are necessarily irresponsible, but because lifestyle naturally expands with income. You earn more, and slowly, without noticing it, you also start spending more, not in one big decision, but in many small ones that feel normal at the time. So the solution is not just discipline every single month, because discipline fluctuates depending on mood, energy, and stress. The real solution is structure. Money comes in, and the first thing you do is automatically move a percentage away before you even think about spending. And at the beginning, it really doesn't matter how small that percentage is. What matters is that it happens consistently. Because you're not just saving money here, you're building identity. You're becoming the type of person who always pays themselves first, no matter how small the amount is. And over time, that identity becomes automatic. You don't debate it anymore, you don't negotiate with yourself, it just happens. Tip number 2, stop trying to look rich. This one is more psychological than financial, and honestly, it's one of the biggest silent traps in your 20s that people don't really talk about enough. We live in a world where everything is visible. People don't just live life anymore, they also display it, edit it, and present it in a very curated way. And that creates comparison without context, which is probably one of the most dangerous combinations for financial behavior. You see highlights, the best moments, the best purchases, the best experiences, but you never see the full picture behind it. So your brain fills in the gaps automatically, and usually not in a realistic way. You start feeling slightly behind, even if your actual situation is completely fine or even stable. And that feeling leads to emotional spending, not because you need something, but because you want to match a certain feeling or image. I've done this too, more times than I'd probably like to admit. Just buying things that made me feel like I was leveling up in life for a moment. But the problem is, that feeling resets extremely fast, sometimes even the same day, and then you're left with the actual financial consequence instead of the emotion. So a better question is not just, do I want this? But also, what am I actually trying to feel right now? Because that's usually where the real answer is hidden. Tip number 3, track your money. This one is boring at first, until it suddenly becomes one of the most powerful habits you can build. Most people don't track spending consistently. They just assume things are fine or roughly under control. But memory is extremely unreliable when it comes to small, frequent expenses. You forget them almost immediately after they happen. But your bank account never forgets. And that gap between perception and reality is where confusion starts. Tracking removes that gap completely. It brings everything into one clear view. No guessing, no assumptions, just reality. And once you see reality clearly enough, your behavior starts adjusting automatically without you forcing it. Tip number 4, avoid bad debt. Debt itself is not the issue. The issue is usually the reason behind it and the timing of the decision. Most bad debt comes from impatience, wanting something now instead of waiting a bit longer for it. And in the moment, it always feels justified, like it makes perfect sense emotionally. But financially, what you're really doing is borrowing from your future self. And that future version of you always has to deal with the repayment pressure later on. Tip number 5, build an emergency fund. This is one of those things that doesn't feel important at all until the exact moment it suddenly becomes extremely important. Life doesn't warn you before problems happen. There is no preparation phase. It just happens randomly. And usually not at a convenient time either, usually at the worst possible timing financially or emotionally. Without savings, everything feels stressful and reactive. With savings, everything becomes more manageable and calm. Quick pause. If you're still here, leave a like and subscribe if you want more content like this. All right, let's continue. Tip number 6, start investing early. Time matters more than money when it comes to investing, because money can always be earned again, but time cannot be replaced. Investing is basically giving time something to work with and letting compounding do its job over years instead of weeks. Even small amounts, when started early, can grow into something much bigger than people expect later on. Tip number 7, increase your income. Cutting expenses is useful, but it always has a natural limit. There is only so much you can reduce. Income, on the other hand, does not have that same ceiling. It grows with skills, experience, positioning, and the value you create. And that's why in the long run, it becomes the most important financial lever you have. Tip number 8, be patient. Nothing in this area works instantly, and that's usually the part most people struggle with the most. Because progress is extremely slow at the beginning, almost invisible if you're only looking at short time frames. But slow progress doesn't mean nothing is happening. It just means it's building in the background. So yeah, these were 8 financial principles for your 20s. Nothing extreme, nothing complicated, just small decisions that stack over time. And if you actually apply even one of them consistently, you'll notice changes over time. And that's really the point of all of this. If you want more content like this, subscribe, start small, start today.